I start with a warm welcome to my two excellent guests that I will present in a second, and a warm welcome to our viewers. I'm Angelos Pangratis. I used to be the chargé d'affaires of the European Union to Washington for a long time, the ambassador of the European Union to Argentina and to the World Trade Organization. But I'm here today in my capacity as founder and president of the board of ALLILONnet. ALLILONnet is a non-governmental, non-for-profit organization. We are supporting our members, mainly our youth, our new generation, in their efforts of professional insertion and subsequently in their professional careers. We do that through a network of volunteers, mentors around the world. We are present in more than 80 countries. Our theme today is energy transition in Greece, energy transition towards low or zero carbon energy sources. The event today is organized by ALLILON and Ideagen. Both ALLILON and Ideagen, we endeavor to encourage open dialogue on issues that have importance, that are important for the future, that can shape the future, and particularly the future for our younger generation. The video will be issued by Ideagen on the 6th of September as part of its summit that took place in Athens on the last July 18th. I feel really very privileged to host two eminent professors today. Our main aim is to benefit from the vast knowledge and experience of Professor Avraam Zelilidis from the Department of Geology, the University of Patras. Professor Zelilidis is globally recognized for his academic work in his field. And he's, I would say, with certainty, really a wise man. A great pleasure also to welcome and host again a great friend, Professor Grigoris Zarotiadis, Dean of the Faculty of Economy and of Political Sciences of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, which is the biggest university in Greece, both in size and student population. Grigoris will ask questions mainly on the economic aspects of the discussion today, reflecting work done in his department, in his faculty, and reflection from himself and his colleagues. As an introduction to our discussion today, I would like to underline very briefly 3 points that we need to keep in mind, in our minds, as we discussed ourselves, the three of us, but also our viewers, because are not necessarily aspects that we will be developed further because of time constraints, but they are pertinent and extremely important for the understanding of the challenge underlying the issues that we are discussing. First, they need to keep in mind the size, the intensity, and the complexity of the current global geopolitical upheaval. With the big powers competition, the power politics dominating the international relations, the struggles, the frictions, the conflicts, and the wars. It's obvious, I don't need to develop further. It's a key element of the whole discussion, even if we don't focus on it. Second, the need to approach these issues from the point of view of the Greek and the European citizen and the real interests of our citizens, because we need to look for answers that respond to the expectations of our citizens. From that point of view, it's important to know that both the EU and Greece are in a very difficult transition process. The EU is losing economic ground and geopolitical influence big way vis-à-vis its main competitors, mainly China and the US. and it's taken in a de-industrialization process that would be unimaginable even a couple of years ago. A process that concerns even Germany. Greece is in an even more challenging situation. Additional threats come from the conflicts all around us, from the threats from our neighbors, particularly one neighbor on the east, direct challenges to our national sovereignty, and a pack of very important issues that are real threats for the future, which are the level of the national debt, particularly in the scenarios of big crisis, international crisis, the brain drain process, the birth rates collapse, the process of impoverishment of the country. We need to remember that Greece is the poorest already country in the EU, whereas 15 years ago was around the middle level of income among the then member states. And both for the EU, the challenges that I mentioned very briefly, and for the negative evolution for the EU and the Greece, a big factor is the energy cost. I just give two figures to illustrate the point. In 2023, the average cost of the natural gas in Europe was 5 times the cost of natural gas in the US. For Greece, we have our Prime Minister who stated very clearly that for 2023, the cost of the total imports of Greece of natural gas was 7 times the cost of the previous year. Now, these costs are absolutely determinant factors, and they are not manageable. We know that the difference in the cost of energy of 10% is already an important element for the future of the country. This kind of difference that we are talking now is create a core number of non-sustainable processes. Non-sustainable processes means very big worries for the future. In a proper diplomatic term, we will say that what is needed is urgent action in order to improve the situation, to achieve an important risk mitigation process, and to improve the overall resilience. And this is diplomatically said. So it's important to keep these elements in mind when we enter the discussion. With your agreement now, I will move to the first question addressed to you, Professor Zelilidis, and this concerns the development of the renewable energy sources in Greece. We all agree that this is an absolutely desirable goal, but it requires realistic assessment of limitations and boundaries concerning, among others, the role that the renewable energy sources can have in the base load power. You will explain this to our audience better than I can do. Issues like the overall environmental cost and their actual contribution to the technological and industrial development of the country. That's the particular aspects on which I would hope that Professor Zarotiadis will come in. Other risks and limitations, and the opportunity costs related to the non-exploitation of natural gas. In Greece, up to now, in terms of renewable energy sources, we have some part of positive news in terms of established capacity of photovoltaics and wind, but we have not seen the benefits for the Greek consumer in terms of cost and price, and we have not seen the benefits for our industrial development. So I would I would pass the floor to Professor Zarotiadis with your permission. So Mr. Zelilidis, so that he can complement eventually the questions on particularly on the economic side, and then you give us an answer overall from your set of arguments. We have heard some of those in previous occasions, but we really look forward to it. Professor Zarotiadis, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just allow me also to say in the beginning, taking the floor, that it is a great pleasure for me to be in such an interesting discussion and panel. Professor Zelilidis is also someone that I would like to hear lively and to discuss with him and to acknowledge his opinion and his both professional as well as scientific knowledge and experiences. I would, with respect to this first question, my contribution in enriching the question marks would be to address the possibilities from that can be derived for the Greek economy and for the Greek production. In other words, having already the experience that the Greek manufacturing did not, and the Greek production and also the Greek agricultural production did not gain much from the projects that are having to do with the development of renewable resources energy. I'm somehow skepticism with respect to if the continuation of this approach would leave any positive impacts for the Greek production. And then on the other side, with respect to the renewability or the sustainability of energy, I think that there are also other aspects that need to be considered, not only the renewable resources, but also the way how the production is being, allow me to say, socialized. Meaning, for instance, this, I'm sure that you are aware of the term prosumers. So trying to combine, by utilizing this new technology in the same person, the production and also the consumption of energy coming from renewable resources. Because otherwise, if we don't do that, we may end up having cases of very centralized production of energy from renewable resources, which has many questions and many criticisms with respect to its social but also environmental spillovers, as it is the case in our days. There is a big discussion, and I'm sure that you are aware of it, with respect to the way how this renewable energy sector is being evolving in the Greek reality. So these would be my contribution with respect to the questions, and I'm really looking forward for the opinion of Professor Zelilidis.
Ideas about these new resources, because they believe that I am negative in this new resource. But when you are talking for photovoltaics, for example, you have to see if there is any negative impact in how you use it in Greece. We have big parks in land that the people use for producing fruits, for example. So I believe that the government have to cut these parks from the land that we use it from producing some other fruits or vegetables. The second is that before 3 days, they called me to see a new park that they prepare to build. and it was on the top of a hill of a mountain, and under this mountain there was very, very huge springs. And the question is there any study about what will be happened in this land, in this mountain, if we have any accident? Independently of the new technologies, we believe that photovoltaics have strong toxic elements inside. And according the world reference, you can see that when this died, everything remained in the location that they built up. So I don't believe that we can give the permission to have photovoltaic parks everywhere. The same happened also with the wind energy. If you will go around the world, you will see that all these machines for wind energy are in the roads, in the farms, without to produce any other problems in the cultivation of the land or on the roads. In Greece, we give the permission to destroy all the mountains. And the problem is not only that they cut the mountains geologically, biologically, as you want, for everywhere, for everything. But they built up also roads 15 meters wide, and they destroy all the mountains. For example, before 3 years, Ianos destroyed Agia Efimia in Kefalonia due to these roads, because the tectonic in Ionian Islands is very strong. Most of the mountains are very strongly deformed, and when you cut the rocks, immediately you give the opportunity to have these landslides. So after Ianos, Agia Efthymia destroyed from these rocks. Yesterday I read also that due to these wind parks, we have the restriction of the rain. And this because due to the mountains relief, many times we can see that the topic climate change and give some rains on the top of the mountains. And when where we have wind machines, there is no rain. So they change also the tropical climate. So independently of the material that they use in the top of the mountains, with many cement, with many iron, with many heavy destroyments in the mountains, independently of this, there are also many other bad application on these mountains. You can see that I went also in 2 mountains in North Greece, and they called me to write a small study about the geology of these mountains when they tried to put wind machines. And I found that there are many alpic lakes. I don't want to say the area, but there are also many other geomorphological features that they destroyed with these parks. My conclusion is that without any detailed geological study, if this is photovoltaic or if it is a wind park, you cannot give the permission to build these parks. So the approach of this renewable energy in Greece is strangely different from the other world. So I disagree with this way and the laws that permit these parks in Greece.
Well, Mr. Zelilidis, the contribution and what we are asking from you, it's really to open the headings for the aspects that need to be looked and studied better. I think that's the contribution. We will not get into discussing the individual issues that you raise, but they are obviously pertinent. What you say about the materials used, the fact that there is no recycling, in fact, for very key components of this material is obviously extremely pertinent. You need very careful studies to really measure the impact that this thing will have down the road in 20, 30, 40, or 50 years, or even longer. It's an obvious good argument. The fact that you have other changes, and you mentioned some geopolitical and others, and the local climate, etc. It makes, I think, obviously a lot of sense for a starting point to start considering seriously the need to cover these aspects properly. And you say that we don't do that sufficiently in Greece. We take certainly this very seriously because you know the issue globally. Any other comment on this, Grigoris, before we go to the next question? No. So we move to the second question. The second question.
If I'm allowed,
yes.
If Angelos, if I'm allowed to say, I absolutely agree with the dimensions that have been raised by Avraam, by Professor Zelilidis. Just to comment also that, as he mentioned, the model of how we are developing renewable energy in Greece, renewable resources resulting energy in Greece, is an erroneous one, because we are doing that in a centralized way with a model of big installments which are substituting natural reservoirs, natural resources of Greece, as well as resources that and land that can be used for other types of production, which are of extreme importance for the quality and the quantity of the Greek GDP and Greek welfare. So therefore, I agree, renewable resources energy, yes, but in the frame of another model at the same time.
Very well. I think all this is complementary and reinforcing. We move to the question number 2. It concerns, we would like to understand, Professor Zelilidis, in a concentrated way, not the details of all your research and exploration. You have done an impressive and an incredible amount of work on exploration of hydrocarbons in Greece. We would like to understand as much as possible in simple terms the result of these explorations and these studies that you have guided yourself, or you with your team, or other colleagues from other universities, and to understand what can you tell us? How confident are you about the existence of important reserves in Greece? If I may add, I would suggest that from now on in our discussion we talk mainly about natural gas, simply because among the hydrocarbons, natural gas is the one recognized both by EU and widely by the UN as a fuel that can play a role as bridge fuel to the national gas and not the others. It's considered a better alternative, not a good alternative, but a better alternative, and it can be a useful option for the transition period towards the final objective that needs to remain eliminating the hydrocarbons down the road. So we will concentrate more about, we will talk more about natural gas. So if you want to tell us your conclusions about this work done and the degree of certainty of important reserves and how confident we can be about that, we would appreciate it very much.
Yes, I can do it, but not in present time. And this because if we would like to talk only for gas, then we have to say that our country is very rich, and yes, we can follow this step to use only the natural gas. Tell me, please, Australia or China is or not richest than Greece? If the answer is yes, then I can tell you that Australia is the main production country of coal. And Australia money earned from selling the coal in China. So if we would like to talk only for gas, then we have to say that we have oil, but we don't want it. Yes, then the question is why Italy produce oil? Why Cyprus produce oil? Why Albania produce oil? Why Libya, Egypt, Israel? No, I cannot follow this question if we have natural gas. Because if we will try to answer in this question, then you have to give an answer why we import shale gas from USA, because it's very dangerous. The pollution in USA is highest than if I will explore the oil. So if we will follow the question, because this was also the decision of our Prime Minister, that we don't need oil, we need only gas. But if we will follow this question or this decision of our government, then we have to answer why we leave the block of Ioanna for drilling and we cut the drilling well in Patraikos, because geologically are equivalent. And if you will follow also what we have in Albania, 60 kilometers far from Ioannina area, then all the people have the same question. Why in Ioannina and not in Patraikos Gulf? But following your question, I have to say that I'm not sure that in Western Greece we can have only gas in most of the blocks that they decide to drill. There are some special areas, for example in Preveza, Arta, where we have thick clastic deposits that we are waiting to have only biogas. But the quantities are not so much to say that can save Greece or can save European community. The only area that we believe that we have 90% gas, and this could be bigger than Zohr in Egypt, is this block that Exxon, if they will decide to drill. And this, if they will decide, is with capital letters. Because until now, the Greek government delayed to give them the permission to continue their work. For 3 years, we are waiting some decisions from the law in order to have the opportunity to continue. Now, we know that for more than 1 year, they have finished everything. 2D, 3D, seismic, geology, everything. And still work on this, and they will decide until the end of the year, they said. And I'm afraid that we will hear in the end of the year that the decision will go next year and the next year. And the decision, if they will drill, is not in action, is not in our government, but probably is in the geopolitics between Libya, Turkey, and USA. So independently of what I believe, if we have huge reservoirs with gases or not, depends of other people consideration if they will drill it. For example, when I was worked with PGS in the old seismic data and I worked in Kyparsiakos Gulf, I recognized a big target, a big block about 25 square kilometers that went up for 500 meters and fall down due to strong pressures. And this pressure was from the gases. And when I present these seismic lines in some oil companies in Texas, they don't believe that these are from Greece. Finally, this block belongs to LP, but the Greek government decided to change this area to sea park to protect the fishes. So I believe also this area will stop in any exploration. So independently of what I believe, the government and the outside people don't want to give the opportunity to find our hydrocarbons.
Yeah. First of all, Professor, I didn't mean when I made the point about the natural gas, I didn't mean that we should decide that we abandon any thought about oil. I just say there is a recognition, special role recognized for gas, and it makes the discussion about gas easier. I didn't say that we should subscribe to the idea that we don't want oil. It's true, and you made the point. I think it's extremely pertinent that all neighboring countries go on, continue with their exploitation of oil. And the question is why Greece should be an exception from that point of view. I still, it was my next question really, the size. This question was, how sure are we about the existence of serious reserves? The next question, so I mix it, I take them together. The next question was going to be how important, what are the best estimates of the importance of the size of these deposits or of these reserves? And what this size, we don't need to be completely precise on the size, but I know there are estimates from different serious sources. And the question would be what the size of these would-be deposits be in terms of considered in relation with the impact that they could have on the Greek economy. In other words, I talked already about the disastrous trend of the country, the downwards trend in terms of making the country and the citizens more and more poor in the process. Can the deposits that you know about, can they have an overall economic impact that could eventually reverse this trend and bring the country back into scenarios of real economic growth and overcoming the other challenges that I mentioned, dealing with the debt and with the other macroeconomic challenges that I mentioned? I don't want to repeat. So this would be an additional question. I don't know if you would like to comment on that from that point of view. What is your conviction from whatever you know about what the impact of a proper exploration of our resources would be in the Greek economy, and what it would mean potentially for the country, for the future of the country?
From 2009, when we signed the first argument that we are poor, and after this, Greece belongs to the banks, I said that put also a point that the bank will take their money when we will explore our hydrocarbons. Because I believe that the last 15 years, if we have explored the hydrocarbons, now we will be the richest country in European community. But perhaps this is not the good approach. Because as I am going around many international meetings in Europe and in USA, I realized that most of the people, most of the oil companies didn't know what is happening in Greece. And perhaps they believed our theory that we have very, very huge reservoirs. And after this, they are afraid that perhaps if we will explore these hydrocarbons, Greece will be very independent country. And after this, I am thinking if it is better to say that, don't worry, we have no so many big reservoirs, and don't afraid. Only we will cover what we need in Greece. Because geopolitically, if Greece has these hydrocarbons, then all the European community will be under our umbrella, under our power, and nobody needs a country like Greece to be so strong. So I believe, yes, I believe that our oil and gas can cover what they need the European community for the next 50 years. So we will not have to pay anybody else, no banks, and the people here will be very happy and very rich, as this happened also in Norway. If we will start where these sources are, I can say that one of the biggest area target is Kyparissaiakos Gulf. And after our studies, we believe that the block in Kyparissaiakos Gulf has at least one ZOR, that means 1 trillion cubic meters with gas and some oil, and they don't need it, they don't want it. And I believe that Exxon will find at least 4 ZOR. And this because all they know that there are 2 different sources. One is the Mediterranean Ridge, where we have many reefs, and these are equivalent with the ZOR in Egypt. And we have also the Hellenic Trench in deeper waters, where we have many names, all these blocks that moved from Kyklades and Peloponnesos to this area, and these are also hotted, and the oil transformed to gas. So we are talking mostly for gases in these 2 areas, and I believe that when they will start the first well, then we will have also new companies that they will be interesting to come in Greece. Don't forget that Chevron came in Greece asking for cooperation with LP for the Kyparissaiakos block, but suddenly disappeared.
Yeah.
What means?
Yeah. Well, you certainly underlined a huge importance, a huge theme in this discussion that we all understand, the importance of the geopolitics. I said in my introduction that we need to keep this in mind, expecting that we will not get too much into it, but it cannot be avoided completely. Now, I would like, because we covered to some extent this issue of the economic importance, and I think of the potential reserves, and I think the answer of Professor Zelilidis is very clear. He believes I would consider an obvious degree of certainty, very high degree of certainty that such reserves exist. Maybe Professor Zarotiadis, you could tell us, not as a question anymore, but as a comment, what are the thoughts that you had on that issue of the potential exploitation of such reserves by Greece? Any thoughts or doubts or questions or hesitations from your side?
I can't have any doubts, or I cannot contribute, or I cannot counter argue to the estimations of Professor Zelilidis about with respect to the extent and the size of the reserves that are exploitable, being either natural gas or petrol in the areas that are without any doubt under the control of the Greek state. I cannot have any argumentation of that. What I can, however, argue about is with respect to the economic effect, the economic outcome, the way how these reserves, considering that they are big and sizable, the way how the exploitation of these reserves could affect the Greek economy. And here, I would like to start. There are, for me, three important points. The first one has to do with who is having the right to exploit them, and who is having the right to take the main benefit, financially speaking, out of it. And this is a question that has to do with the way how the Greek state hypothetically would be able to negotiate with foreign investors and foreign concerns about the way how they will exploit the reserves, and who will have the rights on the returns out of it. So it's a matter of a big negotiation with big companies, with big concentrated concerns, and it has to be considered. I just wanted to say that it is, and there are examples internationally like that there may be that there is a great economic effectiveness and a great economic benefit out of it, but this does not necessarily mean that it will stay within the country. The other two arguments, in a way, are related with an, allow me to say, a la Mediterranean version of the so-called Dutch disease case. And this is something where I have also contributed among other colleagues and analysts. There are two additional negative potential spillovers which need to be considered. And this has to do with the fact that the Mediterranean is not the same case like the North Sea or other seas where the exploitation has been extremely beneficial. I'm speaking about two cases, the so-called cleaning costs and the dealing costs. And there I would also like to have the opinion and the ideas of Avraam. Cleaning costs, what we mean thereby is how could we be efficient in covering the thinkable negative effects that exploitation of that mass of hydrocarbons could affect fishery, could affect tourism in the coastal areas, could affect also the agricultural production, and this is the whole problematic with respect to the so-called cleaning costs. Cleaning in case there will be any problems with affecting the environment and production condition of those sectors. Dealing costs is for me even more interesting, and in a way this relies also upon the arguments that I have heard from Avraam, and are the costs with respect to how we can have a geopolitical agreement upon which country, which state has the right on which specific area. And this dealing cost, which can be very high because this type of dealing can also end up having military and diplomatic problems, is something that we have to consider as well. As far as I understood, many of the areas mentioned by Professor Zelilidis are areas that, at least with respect to the state that has the control over these areas, it is a clear matter. So we are not discussing about other reserves like the eastern part of the Mediterranean, where if we accept it or not, there is a big discussion on and dispute on who has the right on which area. But in the areas that you mentioned, dear Avraam, if I understood correct, the dealing costs wouldn't be so high because more or less the possibility of the Greek state to control them is like given. If this is the case, this takes the dealing cost question out of the discussion, at least for these areas.
Professor Zelilidis, can I ask you if you can consider the questions of Professor Zarotiadis and add the last one from my side, because you answered already the questions that I have about the ongoing process of action. I think you said even an estimate of what the outcome could be, or the prospects of other companies to return to Greece that have left. As you try to answer the questions of Professor Zarotiadis, can you add the additional question that is linked, which is what would you like the policy of the Greek government to be if you have a wish list of what should be our national policy towards the exploration of hydrocarbons and particularly natural gas? What would it be? The floor is yours.
We will start one by one.
Yeah,
First of all, we are talking for the sea. So we are not talking for agriculture, but mostly for fishes. Yes, we agree that we have to protect them. But look in Prinos well. The fishes increased there.
Tourism in coastal areas as well, Avraam, how this should be reserved. Yeah.
Yes. If you will go in Thassos and in Kavala, you will see that every day that there are many boats going around the platforms to see how an exploration goes. And also, I would like to inform you that many countries tried to buy old platforms because at the base of the platforms there are increasement of fishes. There are there where the fishes goes for the development. So I think that if you will follow the laws of European community, like in Greece, and look around you, Libya, Egypt, Israel, Albania, Montenegro, that they don't follow any rules, we have no any accident. Why to reduce, how to say it, why to refuse in Greece to explore the hydrocarbons? Because you believe that perhaps we will have an accident and we have the destroyment of the fishes. There is no any accident with more than 200 wells around Mediterranean, southeast Mediterranean. So leave this how is point that perhaps could be happen an accident and could be destroyed the Mediterranean Sea and all this. Because I told you from the beginning, we are a small point in the planet. We are a mosquito in the planet. And they believe that we will destroy the planet if we will explore hydrocarbons in Greece. The next point was about we are not the North Europe, but we are in the Mediterranean. Yes, but the last 50 years we have a new law and says how we will get the money from the hydrocarbons, which is the cost and what belongs to the government. And this is between 40 and 50%, depends of the well. If the well is expensive, if the well is in deep waters, etc., etc., etc. So we know the algorithm says what we will take. And if we will agree that we are talking for natural gas in the area of ExxonMobil, then we believe that the target is huge. The reservoirs are very rich in hydrocarbons. What else you asked? I think these are where the main points of Grigoris.
Yes.
Yeah, the third question was about the dealing cost, but as far as I understood, the areas that we are talking about do not include this.
I have to say about
because they are clear with respect to the state control of that area.
Yes. For this reason, I avoid mentioning hydrides in Castellorizo or Herodotus Basin, where we have many problems. And I remain only in Western Greece, where there is no problem with Italy.
So if you take all this together, Professor,
what I wish.
Yes.
This was your question.
Yes.
I said that we need the new resources. We need the wind, we need the solar, photovoltaics, but all this can follow the road of every country. Follow Australia, follow China. Also, they try to have new sources, but they don't cut the coal. They don't cut the hydrocarbons. I have many cooperation with these countries looking for hydrocarbons. So I believe that it is difficult to go in the middle road, but they have to follow the middle road because Greece now has a lot of problems, economical problems. And these hydrocarbons can solve this problem without to destroy the environment, without to destroy the mountains, without to destroy the land. Give the opportunity to have the first well.
Sorry, were you interrupted or you finished your answer?
I finished.
Very well. I think we had the time flies. I think we could spend much more time. This is a very, very, very rich discussion, I must say. We come to the stage of concluding this discussion now. I just repeat the key points as I understand them. On the renewable energy, I think you said it very nicely a couple of times, Professor Zelilidis. We all agree on the target of advancing in the renewable energy sources, but we need to do it in a way that is comparable to other countries. I like the formula. We certainly need to study more. You explained in a very pertinent way why it is important and how it would be important to study more, to think about the overall consequences, and we certainly have not seen the benefits at the level of the consumer and at the level of the of our economic activity of the current strategy. What Grigoris said about the model of development, I think it's also very pertinent. It fits. I think we can conclude very strongly what you said nicely, Professor Zelilidis, so that there is a high certainty of existence of important probable reserves of hydrocarbons and natural gas in Greece. And their size, what you said about the size, it was short, but it was very impressive. Their size are certainly of sufficient importance to allow us to conclude that an exploitation of these resources could be a profoundly changing the economic landscape step in the positive direction for the country. There is a big question mark on the consistency of the policy of the Greek state up to now on concerning the exploitation of these resources. I don't want to guess to what is due. You said yourself, you made a number of comments that indicate that this inconsistency is not fully understandable. I don't think we should speculate on this, but it's a fact of life, which is extremely important. And you underlined the positive prospects and the possibilities of good scenarios for the future in the direction of exploiting these resources from ExxonMobil mainly, but you even mentioned the possibility of other interest from other countries, their return to Greece or their interest to Greece from other sources. I think this is the state of play. I hope that the evolutions from the Exxon joint venture will be more positive than you seem to anticipate at some stage, but the potential is certainly here. To finish this discussion, I will mention two things. First, we must dare, as country, to take example from the more advanced and positive examples. In terms of hydrocarbon exploitation, you mentioned it also, Professor Zelilidis. There is this example of Norway, the more advanced country in terms of succeeding in the transition towards the low carbon or zero carbon economy. It's recognized globally as the more advanced country in that direction, and at the same time is the country that exploit fully its mineral resources, the existing mineral resources during the transition process, and covers 25% of the needs of natural gas of the European Union. And it sits on more than $1 trillion fund that has social objectives. So that's a very good example that we should dare consider getting inspiration from eventually. And then I would add a case of our old history that was mentioned by Yannis Grigoriou in an interview that I had with him on similar issues some time ago, and it's a video that will be also issued by Ideagen on the 6th of September. He mentioned a piece of marble with Greek characters of the 4th century, the time of Pericles in Athens, where Athens exploited natural resources, mineral resources, it was silver at the time, and used it to build a huge navy. It's the navy that defeated the Persians in the Salamin battle. And I'm just saying that probably history can repeat itself, or there is a potential for history to repeat itself. And it's good to finish with the thought to our classical period experience and references. I would invite everybody to look at towards the end of this video of Mr. Grigoriou, the interview with him, where he explains this in detail. It's a very impressive achievement of our ancestors. Who knows? Maybe we will be able to repeat something of the kind. I want to thank.
Do you believe that we have Themistocles or Pericles now in Greek?
That's a small detail that is missing now. Yes. I want to thank you both from the deep of my heart. I'm very honored to be a friend, to consider you both friends. I appreciate your contribution. I think this discussion was extremely interesting for anybody who is interested about the future of Greece, and I think it will be followed widely. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your excellent work and for your excellent contributions.
Special thanks also from our side, Angelos, and special thanks to Avraam Zelilidis, his contribution as well.
And also to Ideagen that is hosting this debate.